Hey guys, this is Chris Tiroff, Duke Saw Salvage. We made a trip to Iowa, spent yesterday with Mark Hyman, and couldn't make a trip to Iowa without coming to see Shaun Carr. Shaun Carr is kind of well known in the chainsaw community for awesome modified saws and also doing some welding repair and things and machine work on a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, resurrecting a lot of old chainsaw parts for people. That's one of the things probably I'm best known for. Well, in the old mag stuff.
The magnesium stuff,
but
yeah.
Also, yeah, I have an affinity for the auto-tune saws and anything like 80 cc's or above Husky I really like. So
cool. Yeah, we're doing a couple different things today. I guess we're going to go over to and do probably a demonstration after a while, maybe with the welding and everything. But while we're at your place, I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about some of the saws that you have here, some of the stuff that's like special to you, and then also you got the 592 and a 585 in that you're going to be doing a little bit of work on.
Definitely, we got a little mix of old and new here.
You got it. Do you got a preference on which one you want to talk about first?
Well, let's get right into the 592 in that series of saw, or the new series, because that's what everybody seems to be interested in right now. They've been listening to us, and they've got something that they've picked up something. Because from what I've seen, I haven't measured them myself yet, but from what I've seen for the numbers, they're similar to what we would have put in them to start with, the tiny numbers. And they're coming out with a stainless muffler that makes it a little bit harder to muffler mod, because you need to learn how to weld stainless, which is a tough beast. But it's going to hold up well. And it's a completely open gutted muffler. There's a small outlet underneath the screen, so there is potential for gain still, but it still is just a really nice piece. It's going to last a long time, and it's not going to rust out or rattle apart like a bunch of the others. And you see that there's no muffler brace. That's because they added a third bolt to keep them from rattling off like most other ones.
And it doesn't.
So, I mean, they've been paying attention, or they're thinking out of the box a little bit.
And it doesn't look anything like the other 5 Series mufflers, like the slanted.
Yeah, the whole I don't know, what do you want to call it? The
looks like a shoe. I don't know.
Elephant snout coming off the front of them there.
Yeah.
Which those ones are always so stuffed up on the inside too. They're really weird, and you have to gut a bunch of stuff in them to make them decent, especially in the 572.
Yeah.
And in the 572, if you don't gut the whole tube on the inside and you leave part of it, it acts as a scoop and makes like the most horrendous noise. Then it just piercing noise coming out of them. And if you gut the rest of it, it somehow mellows it out. Like the sound pulse gets to go out and reverberate back and through and kill its own thing out. But if you leave that scoop, it just lets it come straight out.
And what's interesting is I haven't even. It's funny. I'm a dealer for these, and I haven't even really seen one yet. The sales rep brought one, but he had promised it out to another dealer. So I'm still waiting on him to bring it down to look at it. They're not even going to be available, I think, for regular sale in the States till March or April of 22.
Yeah, they were supposed to be here
July or
something 4 or 5 months ago, and yet we still haven't seen them. And so these ones obviously had to come from Europe. People really want them that bad. But there's other nice features about these things. So you want to grab the two on that side.
Yeah.
I mean, the air filters on these are stick.
It seems like they've learned, because they're starting to go to this.
They can go any way,
filter.
but they clip down nice. They make a good seal, and they're a nice flocked filter. You're never going to have any problems with them, especially with the air inject. I don't think it's got to be you're going to have to look at it once every 30 tanks,
Right.
And maybe tap it out a little bit, maybe. But you're not going to see the fines coming through it like you did on the previous saws.
Yeah, and even the 562, they made the update to the air filter because they were using a regular, the old style, felt filter, and they changed the intake elbow. They changed that, and then they changed it to a filter like this, like a pleated style.
Yeah,
filter.
with a better clip.
Yeah.
I think they have a
better they seal better.
Yeah, and they have a bolt, I think, through them now.
Yeah, it's just like this. Yeah, it's like a scaled down version.
Yeah,
of
I
this
had one
filter.
here a few weeks back, but it's already been shipped off to the owner.
Yeah.
And here I thought You can't really make any improvements on the 395 air filtration system. It's known as probably the best one in the industry. That filter is for life, and the air inject keeps the whole air box clean. There's nothing you could do better than that. Well, it was the 394 HD filter or the 395. Hands down, nothing you can do better.
Flows good filter area.
Yeah. I mean, they could have maybe made the intake horn a little bit bigger to support a little bit more horsepower, but even then, I've seen them make with the stroker ones they've made over 12 horsepower through that air intake horn. So there's no problem with filter and everything.
Right.
It flows enough.
Right.
You're not going to get anything more. Whereas like the Steel 066, you put a max flow on one of those and you feel the difference. Like you physically have to change the carburetor tune.
Right.
And so that it's done something.
Yeah.
And on these, it just doesn't make any difference. So air filtration system is pretty nice. The cylinder has giant amount of fins on it. It's going to cool nice. It seems to be messing with my tack when I try to put it on, so I think that they might actually be doing something electronically with the coil to give it some double sparks. Because at idle, I see like $3,000.
It'll jump
and at full throttle, I see like 18,000.
Okay, yeah,
or
that's
like
not right.
Yeah, it's like completely maxing my tack out. So it's doing something there that's just different, or it could just be it could be some backfeed portion of like how it's trying to produce electricity for the injector and everything, or not the injector but the poppet valve inside. So it could be some just backfeed like that my tack's picking up. But all I know is that when I try to actually measure anything, I don't get it.
If you've got the wire that you could wrap around this, if it would give you a more accurate.
Maybe my tiny tack or whatever that I have, the inductive is just too sensitive or something.
Sure.
But it must be doing there's something going on there. I can't quite. I'd have to really deep dive into that, which I don't have time to do that.
I think Joe dynoed these. Joe
did dyno one of these, and it's on his channel. They made like a touch under 9 horsepower, I think. Like, what was it, 8,
7? I think the best thing to do is check out Joe's channel. He made a video with the 660, the 661, the 395, and a 592.
Yep.
And on his machine, the 592 made the most power.
Which his dyno has been pretty accurate with what you'd expect for the manufacturers. I mean, given what the manufacturers put out, it's been pretty accurate with a lot of those. This one, the 592, is a overachiever by sorts. It's rated at 7.2 and it made 8.7, so it's roughly 20% over what they manufacturer rated it already. I
think in Joe's video, it was 8.7 peak. So it's like it peaks out at 8.7, but
but maybe
Husqvarna's
at 9.6 where Husqvarna rated it, maybe it was 7.2. I don't know.
Right, or maybe they just do an average. It's who knows how Husqvarna decides to
take 2,000 RPM there, and we'll make an average.
We're going to look at the big number. It's
that's the way dyno. That's the way the dyno drags work. You always look at the big number. No one ever pays attention to the area under the curve.
Right.
But with racing, that's actually what really matters, the area under the curve.
Right.
Because you're always accelerating through that.
Right.
With the chainsaw, you're kind of always running it at a certain RPM, especially even in racing chainsaws. You got to be good enough to keep it at that where it really wants.
Right.
And so you're always keeping it at that maximum. It's somewhere between maximum horsepower, maximum torque. There's a balance there, position where it wants to cut the fastest.
Yeah, and when you're running that, you're always kind of running at wide open throttle, under load. You're not trying to grab another gear and
if you're pulling it all the way down to peak torque, you already messed up.
Right.
You've put too much load on it and you've slowed yourself down. So there's somewhere in there where the chain speed, is the maximum for the horsepower, and you maximize the potential of the chain.
Right.
And so there's something in there. There's each saw, even depending upon what it is, so you have to sit there and feel with it and match a chain to it and stuff. People with racing in the racing industry of chainsaws spend countless hours trying to figure that stuff out, matching a chain to a saw and figuring out what exact RPM,
all the minutia,
because it comes down to just hundredths of a second.
Filing down rivets on the chain.
They go crazy on the chains. you think you have a lot of time building a chainsaw. You should see how much time they have building just a chain.
Yeah, 40, 50 hours in one chain.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What else is going on with this thing here?
Well, they have kind of a newer, interesting carb setup. You know that the 585 is a regular carb, and so for them to share the same platform, they can't do the more integrated carb and strato butterfly like you've had before. So now they're separated. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of it's really interesting, like when you look underneath the airbox, because you see the two separate holes way away from each other. But that does allow for a lot better straight shot of the intake, so the actual carburetor's shooting into that more down into the case better. The strato charged one is now shooting straight into the strato ports, and it doesn't have the weird Y bridge like it used to, like on the other saws, and have to then transfer up through with the intake manifold. And so I think that'll probably help out. It helps out a lot with throttle response, because when you open up the throttle blades, that pulse from both are hitting at the same time.
Gotcha.
Because they're about equal.
What is it? So the major difference between the 585 and the 592 is this has like conventional carburation on it, and then this has the auto-tune carburation.
Exactly, and then they make the 585 2mm smaller bore.
Okay.
But as far as, I haven't had them all apart before yet, but it looks like you could probably put the 592 cylinder onto the 585. I have to validate that, and when I have them both apart, I'll mock it up. We'll see.
Yeah, because
everybody wants to know that.
Right.
Can I put the big bore with a regular carburetor on it?
Well,
because that's what people want.
And a lot of the saws lately, like the let's say the 365, the 372X torque, the 555 and the 562. I don't want to say the 565 and 572 off the top of my head. I'm not sure, but the earlier ones I was talking about, they all share the same bore, and then there was work done under the transfer covers.
Yeah.
So, but these are actually two different bores.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think the 565 and 572 are different bores.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say 100%, but yeah, most of the time on the other ones it was just a difference in transfer caps too.
Yeah. Yeah, because they just restrict it down.
Yeah, they're restricting just in the transfer caps.
Yeah.
Which was an easy
fix. Yeah.
Easy fix.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 minutes of grinding.
Yeah. So cool. Do you want to move on to some of these other saws here?
I mean,
or you still got something you want to talk about with the 592?
I think that pretty much covers it for most. I'll go into these things further on my channel and on the chainsaw forums.
If you really want the in-depth technical stuff, I'd check out Shaun's channel. We're just kind of doing a brief talk, and
so I'll probably, when I finally get them both apart, will do some mock-up and make sure that things can transfer back and forth, and I'll make a video of that.
Cool.
If it works. To the chainsaw universe.
I'm going to take these. We'll set these off to the side.
So this is a 288 that I've had together for a long time. And interestingly enough, when I built this one, I actually built you a 288.
Right.
Way before I even really knew you. And they were on my channel as the mild and wild builds. And this was the wild build. And the wild build kind of was an interesting mistake. I took way too much out of the chamber on it by accident. I don't know, got mixed up with my numbers when I was doing the machine work, and ended up taking like 80-some thousandths out of the squish band. And so I had to go back into it and actually relieve the chamber some, because it had too much compression. Like, it was impossible to start. It was like 260 or something like that.
And these are not really the easiest saw to start anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I think the geometry of the pulley and everything, it's not really
they have a small pulley.
Right.
And then, so after that, of course, I ran into other problems, like, I had to drop the decomp quite a bit, because the cylinders dropped a ton. And then, once you do that, storing the transfers up to a decent height. What am I not getting here? I guess this guy needs a little bit more. I ended up grinding out the transfer, not once, like twice. I ground out of them once when I was first doing it, and I went through and welded them up. So I welded up the top of the transfers, mostly like this corner right here.
Like in the inside, so you build up a little bit.
Yeah, I had to build
material.
up the top of them so that I could grind a little bit further, and I still ground out of that, and then I just couldn't get in there to weld it anymore. So the one side has a little bit of epoxy over the top of it. But also when I did this, I kind of pioneered putting a 394 carburetor on it instead of the 288. It's roughly about the same bore, but it gets the nozzle style carburetor, and you also get, you know, the fun features of having the fast idle right on the lever,
Right.
and things like that. So it was a nice build, and it's an absolute beast of a saw. It runs its entire life with like a 32 and an 8-pin on it, and it just doesn't care.
Right. I remember that one. I remember the 288, the mild one I got off you, and I remember that thing being mean. I remember, and if this is anything like that, which I'm sure it is, and more,
Yeah.
that's got to be a heck of a saw. How long ago was that? Do you think that you built that?
Oh, I didn't live in this house, so it had to be at least 6 or 7 years ago, I think. Maybe even 8.
And is that what you initially started
Actually,
with? Was like,
hold on.
oh, there you go. You got a date.
2012
Okay.
is when I built this one.
Yeah,
It
so
was
that's
December
December.
17th of 2012.
So 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And then what else you got here?
And then we have 395, but this one is an interesting one because it is a stroker crank. So on these, I take a 2100 crank and machine down the flywheel side to fit into the case, or to fit the flywheel.
So is the diameter of the 2100 crank a little bit bigger?
So remember that the 2100 had the coil underneath the flywheel?
Yes.
So the stub of the flywheel side stub of the crank is a lot longer.
Oh, okay.
So you have to shorten that up and then cut the taper to fit the newer flywheel.
Okay.
Or recut it, you know.
And how much extra
And
strength does
I
it
switch
give
them
you?
over to the 394 because it has the metal hub. When you put them with the aluminum hub on there and they get to where they spool up real fast, that aluminum hub one has a tendency to slip.
Okay.
It's just a smaller taper, the nut's smaller, everything. So it's easier to do with the 394 flywheel. But when you also do that, then you have to bore out the crankcase just a little bit to fit that longer,
Right.
the longer crank or the bigger crank throw.
Right.
So there's a ton of machine work to get it to happen.
How
Plus,
much-
spacers underneath the cylinder to
Right.
account for the 2 millimeter
Right.
longer stroke.
How much more stroke do you end up with the 2100 crank?
So it's 2 millimeters bigger stroke.
Okay.
Or longer stroke. So it puts them at 99 cc's basically,
Okay.
99.8 or something like that.
Okay.
It's
yeah.
the same. It's the same bore and stroke combo as a 2100.
Okay.
But you get a 2100 and the bigger 394 frame or 395 frame with better anti-vibe and
Right.
newer technology. And,
Right. More readily available
and
parts.
quad transfer ports.
Right.
So they become pretty mean.
And I think I remember, didn't you have a thread about this on AS, on Arborist site, or on OPE forum, like the build for this?
Yep. So I originally did a build for, I think, one of them, but at the same time I was building a race saw as well, and so the thread was kind of half about this, but hiding kind of some of the race saw till the end. And
What gave you the idea? Like, so, and that's like how you've done some interesting things over the years, building stuff. Some guys just take saws and just put them together and leave them stock. Some guys port things, and some guys go a little bit extra and do like what you did with this. And like, what drove you to make the decision? Like, hey, I think I can make this work, and then
what actually drove me was a friend wanted a gas muffler race saw, and he was looking at getting a cylinder board and going to a bigger bore. And I said, why don't we just put a 2 millimeter longer stroke in it to max it out in the 6 cube? Because the 6 cubes, like we're
99
historically in the past kind of run by the 2100 back in the day when it was really kind of king. But with newer stuff, it just doesn't. 2100s race saws just don't seem to like hold up as well as what the other stuff does. When you got, especially for kind of a fun play saw kind of thing, like a grudge match, gas muffler, you're going to be running it multiple times. It's really nice to have an intake boot instead of a solid manifold, or so the carb doesn't get heat soaked and just they behave better. And so we talked about doing that. And that's when I was kind of like, all right, well, let's put a stroker crank in it. We'll put a big carb rod on it. We'll make it, just the most meanest kind of almost close to a work saw that we can possibly do.
Right, yeah, because this thing doesn't, outside of the sticker with your name on it, doesn't really appear to be anything out of the ordinary.
No, and on this one, it's just got a doctored carburetor on it, stock carburetor. I mean, it's just the stock kind of carburetor. I just mess around with the internals a little bit, and then so the most part, you would never know that it was a stroker crank just by looking at the outside of it. Maybe you'd notice that the decomp buttons moved up instead of down.
Right.
That would be the only.
It's such.
That would be the only
tell.
subtle
Yeah,
thing.
but I think only people that mess with this stuff a lot would recognize that. Hey, that decomp is a little bit off center.
It's just a little high. Yeah.
Right.
It's about 100 thousandths high.
Right. This thing's cool, man.
So yeah, that's an absolute beast of a saw, and they pull a long bar that just like it doesn't care.
Right. All right, I think what we'll do now is we're going to probably move on to the next segment, and I think we're going to end up at the shop. You do a lot.
Yeah, we'll end up at the race shop that I have a lot of my CNC equipment at, and we do other things there, and we can poke around and do more of an interview there of different things, and or do some welding there. Even I have a TIG welding bench there, as well as I have a small one here too. So
we'll have to head down there and see what we get into.
Yeah.
So cool.